Ladies and gentlemen, what a day it is. Welcome to the Die Hard MMA podcast. I am your host, as always, Clint. And what a day. Welcome to the show. This may be the absolute best Monday show we have ever done. Well, it's definitely the best Monday show we've ever done. It might be the best recap episode we have done in the history of the podcast. We absolutely murdered UFC Poirier versus Hooker. It was a slaughter. It was a landslide. Please tell me you all cashed with me. I was having too much fun on Twitter, hitting the retweet button when everyone posted their receipts and their tickets for the submission props, for the parlays. We killed the entire freaking night. It was one of the best nights of MMA I've ever seen. On top of that, it was a phenomenal card. There was so much to talk about from a good perspective. I mean, it's a solid B plus or an A card with a phenomenal main event that's an absolute banger, a fight of the year candidate. Like, what more could we ask for? We're filling our pockets to the point that our pants are falling down, and the fights are amazing. Oh, I love you all. Welcome into the chat, everybody. What is up? I've got to get started here on my shout-outs. We got a packed night. So, as always, no rest for the weary, right? We've got UFC Fight Island coming up, and we're going to go ahead and stagger things a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and pop this up here for you to view. This is the schedule, folks. This is what we're doing for the near future. So today we are breaking down UFC 251. It's going to be a bit of a preview. We obviously aren't locking a ton in because we've got 2 full weeks to make any decisions on bets and things like that. So there's very, very few bets we're actually making tonight, but there will definitely be some stuff coming later in the week. Keep an eye out on my Twitter at DieHardMMAPod because I'll be locking stuff in all the way up until fight time. Next week on Monday, rather than doing UFC 251, we'll be taking on Qatar versus Ige, which is the 15th event. That's the one coming midweek on a Wednesday. And that way, when 7/13, Monday, 2 weeks from now, rolls around, we will be able to take on Figueiredo versus Benavidez, which will be that Friday. So now, on those second 2 events, 7/6 and 7/13, if anything pops up that I want to adjust on the fights that are leading up, obviously we can touch on it, but those will be the main focus. All right, and with that said, welcome into the show, everybody. Duncan Stonehouse, Chris Callan, Bufo on the beat. We've got Sean Sullivan. That's right, my buddy. We are on a heater. 1D Ammo, UFC betting experience. Chad, Bernadette. We've all, you know what, guys? I love you all so much. Thank you for joining me for the show. I literally cannot shout you all out. The podcast has gotten that big. We've got 120 people live kicking off the show. So just know I love and appreciate every single one of you. You know who else I love and appreciate? Odds.com. This podcast is sponsored by Odds.com. Whether you're watching this live on my channel, on YouTube at the Die Hard MMA podcast, or you're watching live on Odds HQ, be sure you hit up that other channel and give us a follow. Folks, I am this close to hitting that 1,000 subscriber mark. That was my goal for the end of 2020. Here we are. We're knocking on the door. We might even hit it before UFC 251. So I couldn't be more amped about that. Bufo, my buddy, thank you very much for that. Smash the... Oh, wrong one. Bufo said smash the like button. I swear that's the one I was trying to highlight. I'll take it though. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate you, my friend. So, quick little housekeeping note here. I'm floored by the love, folks. The amount of tips and donations supporting the show rolling in after last week was unreal. Normally, I shout out every single tipper that sends me a little something, but I'll be honest, there were so many of you guys that we would burn the entire recap segment of the show trying to get all that out. So thank you very much. If you want my information, it will be in the description below. Tips and donations for my PayPal and my Venmo. If you crushed it, if you used my information and had a good weekend, they're always appreciated because my information is always free, my friends. You will never have a tout service here. You're never going to have to pay for a damn thing. All I ask for is your support, likes, subscribes, retweets, and then if you feel like tipping out of the goodness of your heart, I will always appreciate it. With that said, I've got a little special treat for y'all. This week, we have someone that some of you may recall joining us on the show today. For the OG diehards, for those of you who have been with me forever, it's the return of Cousin Judd. Judd, buddy, what is going on? Welcome back to the live show.
Hey, thanks for having me, dude. I'm jacked. And what a card to be coming in after. I mean, dude, 200 people voted, and you're twice as bad for the casinos as COVID. I mean, I think you nailed it last week.
The Twitter poll proved that one. Everyone voted that I was worse for the casinos than COVID-19 is, and I gotta tell you, that feels pretty damn good, everybody. So, Cousin Judd, he is my real life cousin. He likes hanging out. We like breaking down the fights together, and we're constantly breaking our thumbs, texting each other about stuff. So I thought, considering today is more of a celebration than a serious breakdown, since we don't have a fight coming up on Saturday, it's a perfect time to hang out with Cousin Judd here and have a good time. I'm going to switch this here so you can see my hand movements, because y'all know I like to be a little expressive. First thing, we got to recap last week's event. And before we do that, I do have to shout out my boys over at GOATcapitalsports.com. They crushed it the same as we did last weekend. And today, if y'all didn't notice, they tweeted out a free winner in soccer. So they're giving away free plays. Check out GOATcapitalsports.com. at GoatCapitalSports _ over on Twitter. They're giving away free money the same as I am, and they'll have you covered for the other major sports now that they look like they're all coming back. So, Judd, we kicked the night off with an absolute bang last week. The preliminary card was so awesome, and it was only 4 fights long, but it was fantastic. We had Jordan Griffin and Youssef Zalal, first bet of the evening. We had plus 115 on Youssef Zalal, and I mean, he got it done, but honestly, it was by the skin of our teeth. That one could have gone the other way. Griffin looked like he gassed out, and that's almost, I feel like, the only reason we cashed.
Yeah, I thought it was a great fight. I thought Youssef showed us some stuff that he can do. I think the kid has some serious potential. I liked him. I'll be watching for him in the future. Jordan Griffin, he definitely held his own. This was not a one-sided fight. He is who he is. He's physically imposing. He's not going to knock you out with a double backflip spinning heel kick or anything, but he does what he does, and he's tough to beat. But great fight. We were on the right side. It was a close enough fight to go our way. So, heck of a way to start off the night.
Yeah, it was a good way to go. I mean, I felt a little uncomfortable about it. I'm really happy that Zalal is dropping a weight class. This was his last fight at featherweight. He's planning on dropping 10 pounds, and the size difference was apparent. I think he'll do a whole lot better down there. And honestly, I wouldn't be mad if you scored it for Griffin. I did think Zalal did enough to get it done, but it's not I mean, if you think that Griffin won, I don't have much of an argument to give for you. It was extremely close, but I was happy to cash the first bet of the night. And then the second fight, man, we dodged a bullet. We had Kay Hansen taking on Jinyu Frey, and originally I was going to be all over Jinyu Frey, and honestly, she looked great. In round one, she was dominant. She was big. She was strong. The striking advantage was apparent. And then Kay just flipped the tables on her in round two. And honestly, I still thought Jin was going to win it the way round three was going. It wasn't until that unreal table turn of a submission that she hit, blew the brakes off her. Did you see the guy that bet like $37,000 on Kay Hansen?
I saw it, and she ran into him at the airport randomly.
Right?
Like, what's going on? No, what a debut win for her. That's awesome. The youth movement's real. I mean, there's a ton of young fighters that are exciting as heck right now. I'm sure the UFC's licking their chops with people like Kay and Sugar Sean and Chase Hooper and all the young bucks coming in here and mixing things up. Heck of a win for her. I saw she got a shout out from Ronda Rousey. That never hurts an up and coming prospect's ego, I'm sure. But yeah, no, great. Just I'm happy I dodged it as well. I'll typically fade a newcomer, and but she did it. She did the thing. Congratulations to her.
Wow, my guy Gabe Killian here. I know he was shouting her out all last week saying that he had her by finish. And, I mean, I'll be honest, I was not expecting that. I mean, congratulations on hitting those two there, buddy, because that's a big casher. And I wasn't expecting it. But you nailed it on the head with Ronda Rousey, man. She's like a mini Ronda. She gets her ass kicked on the feet and then snatches an arm.
Yep. 10th planet protege. I'm sure Eddie Bravo was jacked. So
She's gonna evolve though. This is a different stage of MMA. She's not like Rousey where she'll stagnate. She'll improve. Right. She'll be better. I'm excited to see what Kay does in the future. The next fight, Philip Lins, Tanner Boser, and Davey. Okay, I got to shout out my own Friday show, folks. Like, the Friday after the weigh-in show has been straight fire lately. We have made 4 reads based on the weigh-ins that have all cashed so far. We've made a crap ton of money just by spotting these people that don't look good coming in for these fights. Boser dropping about 10 pounds and then packing muscle on top of it. As soon as I saw that, I already wanted to fade Lins, but as soon as I saw the shape that Boser was in, I was like, it's done. We're betting the guy. Did not expect him to get it done by knockout. Did you see that one?
Absolutely, yeah, and a heck of a fight. I mean, looking like the slimmer, trimmer, meaner version of Roy Nelson. I love it. We were on the right side. There's a couple haters out there that I think you said hi to one of them, and good on you. You know, it's good. It's good fun to have a little back and forth. No, a heck of a win for him. Exciting young kid. Be looking forward to his next fight, which I'm guessing can't be that far away. I mean, it's not like he took a bunch of damage in the fight. Yeah.
No, I'm expecting a quick turnaround for him, which I would love to see him back in there. Boser's low-key one of those guys that I've always loved to back in the right position. Now that he's physically getting where he needs to be,
yep.
I mean, he definitely – I'm hoping he gets in there again because we might be able to cash in on him, especially if he takes on Maurice Green, but we'll get there.
Right.
Now, here we go. The main event of the prelims, Judd.
Yes.
I got so much shit. Like, everybody in the chat right now, I got so much shit on Instagram, on YouTube, on Twitter when I called out Kama Worthy, and not only that, but sacked up enough to put 2 units on the kid. I can't tell you how many people were calling me a fraud, calling me a moron, saying Pena's the what, son? He came out and dominated. He did very, very well in round 1. I scored round 1 for Kama Worthy. Round 2, I thought went Pena's way, obviously, with the grappling. But then round 3, Pena does what Pena does. No one believed me when I said the guy gasses. He is not the same fighter in round 3. He's just been big enough to get it done against smaller, weaker, lesser opponents. And Kama Worthy had a full gas tank in round 3, and it felt so good for him to get the finish. Like, not just to win, but to get a late finish when he started to mess the dude up. That felt incredible. Tell me, Judd. Tell me you cashed with me on Worthy.
I absolutely cashed with you. I doubled down on it. So I cashed on 2 bets. I plus 225, plus 245. I don't remember exactly what it was. But, yeah, no, we racked up 4.5 plus units on that one fight. Luis Pena is, he's not a bad prospect, but I can see why he was the favorite. So far, so good for him. What we had seen in the UFC, he was a legit guy. But and his length at that weight class is insane. I mean, his reach is sick. But Kama Worthy, got it done. Didn't mind having to step in before he unleashed some strikes, and good on him. But this fight, I mean, this is half of the reason why all the new folks are showing up. This fight got you some nicknames. You are the Oracle of the West, the Oracle of the Sun Valley. But this fight was an awesome call by you.
Thank you, my friend. And I'm not looking for the accolades or anything like that. So we don't have to, just for everyone in the chat, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I damn near swept the board, baby. Plus 10 units of profit in one night. It's hard not to be a little excited.
Starting the prelims off with 3 bets and nailing all of them and having doubled down on the third is an insane start. I mean, after the Boser fight, I was going, this is kind of feeling like a special night, And then when Kama came through, I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. I was having some big time fun when that one came through.
Absolutely. And I'll be honest, I just felt good that the first 2 plays cashed because I thought, now we're free rolling on Worthy. If Worthy loses, I'm even going into the main card. That's how I felt about it. For him to come through then was phenomenal. And Reggae Panda, my buddy, thank you so much for the comment, my friend. Trust me, don't worry. We're locking it in. If you're new, if you're just getting on the stream here, we've got about 60, 70 more people that have jumped on since we got started. This is a celebration episode. There's no fights coming up on Saturday, so we are going to pat ourselves on the back a little bit. We're going to have a little fun. After we get done with the recap, don't you worry. We'll be hitting 251, and I am locked in hard for Fight Island. We're going to keep a stiff schedule, and we're going to keep this money gravy train rolling. So, all right.
We gotta figure you out some kind of a gimmick when you have a night like you had on Saturday night. I mean, the folks in the chat may be able to help you out. We gotta have some guns going, or some confetti falling, or some kind of AC/DC intro song. I don't know what's going on, but that was a heck of a night. And
I will work on it. I'll work on that because I got to tell you, copyright laws are a bitch. Because I wanted to do this celebration. I wanted to have that playing and just like come in with last week. Last week I did the sunglasses and the money raining behind, but it's not as fun without some kind of music to go with it. It's hard with these damn copyright laws. But anyway, let's get to the main card for last week. So we're riding high. We've swept the undercard. We dodged the one bullet where we could have lost some money. And then we get to Sean Woodson and Juicy J. Bro, I shit so hard on Juicy J. Like, this was the one fight on the card that if you were like, Clint, your mortgage, your house, your life savings, you've got to put it on one fighter this weekend, it was gonna be Sean Woodson. And he dominated for the first 2 rounds. His jab was busting Juicy J up. I mean, he was trying, like Rosa was in that fight. He was doing what he could to stay live, but it was apparent that he was just outclassed on the feet. And it hits the mat for 2 seconds and he locks up a choke. How many parlays got busted by that?
All of them? All of them? I mean, this is the fight that convinced me that I wasn't watching like a taped replay that you had seen ahead of time. Because after your first 3 cash, I was like, what's going on here? But congrats to Julian. I mean, he came in short notice.
He saved his job. Short notice replacement, 3-fight losing streak.
Yeah, insane. Great fight by him. Congrats to him. Hopefully Woodson gets off this night. I'm thinking he'll be fine. If anything, we just kind of stick him in our back pocket and hope that people have some recency bias and we get a great line on him for his next fight. He's not a bad fighter. He just made the mistake of thinking that punching the guy in the face a million times was a way to win a fight.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's why we love this sport, right? Like, people talk about how hard it is to have a good betting card, and they crap on like YouTubers and predictors and guys like us. And when something like that happens, like, how did you bet on the -600? Like, bro, nobody saw that coming. So this is a hard game to win at. And Brian, my boy, I'm just going to leave your comment here for a second. I'm just going to let it sit, let it marinate, let everybody see it. I agree. My wife
nobody tell Clint's wife about this comment, but I'm a fan. Yep.
I don't think she's tuning in live. It's okay. So after that, we've got Takashi Sato welcoming Jason Witt. Very similar situation. And, just another one of those late replacement type of situations. And this is the one that I was actually live with my boys over at the Pub Sports Radio. I do some article work and stuff like that for them. I like hanging out with them. And we were having some fun, but I told him this is the one, not Woodson, but Sato was a guy that I had a bet against. And then when he got this guy as a fill-in, I went smash it. Like, smash Takashi Sato. I didn't add him as a late pick myself. I put him in a parlay, which, of course, Woodson destroyed. I wish I had just laid the heavy wood on Takashi Sato here because he mauled this kid. I'm a big fan of Sato, and honestly, I might have dodged a bullet. My kid Brahima dropping out. We may have been in trouble with that bet because the form that Sato was in, I don't know if his opponent was just a bum or if this is kind of a similar situation we would have saw against Brahima. I don't know, but that one, like I said, I'm feeling a little lucky because I dodged a bullet. Oh, shit. The wife was listening, folks. She makes her first appearance on the live show to let me know she was listening.
There you go.
Going for a date with Jillian Robertson.
I don't want to bag on Jason Witt too much. we've seen plenty of fights canceled at the last minute. And I always appreciate the heck out of these dudes who have the stones to get up off the couch and take a late notice fight so that we can all enjoy ourselves on a Saturday night. Especially now when there's like nothing else going on. These late notice replacements mean we get to actually have fights instead of having half of the card, But this was a mismatch. It was obvious, it wasn't much of a fight.
Brian, buddy, I'm sleeping on the couch tonight, and it's your fault.
Oh, Lord.
Gotta love live shows, folks. Welcome to the channel. If you're just now jumping in, Die Hard MMA podcast brought to you by odds.com. Coming off a huge week. Cousin Judd here on the show, helping us celebrate just a little bit. And the next fight, you know what, man? This one, these boys got robbed. Let's just start with that. Brendan Allen taking on Kyle Daukaus. We're talking about these short notice replacements. Daukaus came in for a war. This dude came to fight, and it was an absolute honor to watch this battle, man. I had so much fun. It was so scrambly, so back and forth, so up and down. And if it wasn't on a card with Poirier versus Hooker as the main event, they win fight of the night in 50 Gs.
No question. No question. Yeah, this fight was so back and forth. I was convinced it was going to be, that it was headed to an early finish, 5 or 6 different times. Kyle Daukaus definitely, brought his A game and came to party. Congrats to Brendan Allen. This was just a heck of a fight. Your dodge and watch was absolutely the right call. This was the grab a beer, grab a popcorn, enjoy yourself. But Allen's on a 7-5 win streak now. That's, good on him. Fun stuff.
Allen's legit. And obviously Daukaus is as well. But I'm kind of with Gabe here that this fight was incredibly close. And I'm so happy that I did the fireball and popcorn for this one because you had value betting Daukaus. At that line, with how close that fight was, he could have had it. He absolutely could have had it.
Well, he definitely could have had it. A lot of times, I'm a fan of the stand up and bang fights. I'm a fan of the jiu-jitsu matches. I'm a fan of MMA totally, but I love these fights that are just all over the place and both guys are prepared. It doesn't matter where it goes. It's not this was just a great matchup. Great matchup. Congrats to the matchup makers at the UFC. They brought us a good one here. It was fun.
A good short notice kid. He's got a roster slot now in the UFC and deserves it after that performance.
Absolutely.
So here we go. This is my main event of the evening. We've got Gian Villante taking on Maurice Greene. And I just want the chat right now to explode with cash it, folks. Yeah. I put out the best, most awesome video telling y'all that the prop bet plus 1,000 on Maurice Greene by submission was the way to go here. And it cashed, baby. We made so much money on this fight. I know bookies are crying over this one because the amount of people that tailed it and got their money back or just flooded with profit this weekend on that one, it was beautiful. And you know what's really funny is I'm actually still getting a shit ton of hate about this one. I still have a bunch of haters that are on YouTube that are like, oh, you got lucky, bro. And I'm like, okay. We bet a 10-1. Of course I got lucky. This is gambling, folks. Like, okay, Judd, do you play poker? Have you ever played poker?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I play poker. I've got a long history playing poker, and what I like to equate, that's how I got into sports betting, was starting with poker. The odds, the value, the implied value, that's really what got me rolling when it came to poker. And in sports betting, it's kind of the same idea, but you know what? This is one of those spots where you put your chips in good, and you just pray for the best, right? This bet was only added after I saw how out of shape Gian Villante was at the weigh-ins. He has no submissions. He's never been subbed out before. And I was staying clear away from this fight until I saw him at the weigh-ins. When you realize this dude's rolling off the couch and he's got no cardio, he hasn't trained, he's out of shape, and then you've got a big boy who makes mistakes and has a good submission game off his back, and you're telling me I've got 10-1 to walk away with that? It was just an easy spot for me to go ahead and take that stab. So Just happy it got done, but everyone calling it a fluke and stuff like that. We knew at some point this was going to end up on the ground. Whether Green knocked Vellante down and then Vellante gave up, or Vellante knocked Green down and Green was off of his back, either way, that submission was going to be live. And if we had a Vellante that came in with a six-pack, I'm never telling you to make that bet.
Of course not. Yeah. You just wonder if the same people making those comments are going after lottery winners, going, "You didn't know what those numbers were going to be before you bought that ticket." Yeah, no kidding, dude. It's a 10-1 bet. It's an
Let me get my crystal ball out.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, we're obviously free rolling. After the early prelims, but yeah, of course we didn't know what was going to happen in this fight, and the 10-1, long shot on the sub was what it was, and the sub was weird. The submission itself was like the weirdest, you're gassed, I cover your mouth and you quit. Chunks, it was the weirdest thing.
So it's funny, actually. I'm working on something. I'm putting on something together for you guys for that particular submission. So stay tuned. I don't want to say anything in case I can't get it to work with all the COVID madness going on. But Judd, let me tell you, man, that was an arm triangle from bottom, and it's my favorite submission. I personally have won jiu-jitsu matches with that exact submission. So people simply don't understand what that submission was, but it was legitimate. So we'll just put a pin in that. We need to move on. I know the chat's getting a little restless here. We got to get to UFC 251 eventually so people can get their dinner. We've got Mike Perry taking on Mickey Gall, and this is another one that I just wanted to kind of stay away from. I absolutely said that Mike Perry should win this fight on a bad night. You know what I mean? The corner thing didn't worry me too much. He doesn't listen to his corner anyway. So Mickey Gall, I couldn't understand the amount of love coming for Mickey Gall. Like, something you've got to keep in mind with sports betting is you are not this kid's coach. Like, you might see the path to victory for this guy, but he's never shown in his history that he's capable of doing it or willing to do it. So the people that were like, oh, he'll take Mike Perry down. He has no wrestling, and he doesn't take anybody down. Like, he's a jiu-jitsu guy that falls to the mat or tries to take your back or gets knocked down. Like, those are the only ways he ends up on the floor. He's not going to double leg Mike Perry. That was never going to happen. So another good dodge, in my opinion. Did you end up playing anything on this one?
I did. I actually had I had Mike Perry in this fight by knockout, and then I believe that I think I sprinkled on him in the first round because like you said, I thought Mike Perry was going to win the fight. There wasn't a whole lot of value on it. I chopped up like a half a unit and threw a quarter unit on each of those two. Didn't cash anything since the fight went the distance, obviously, but it was actually better than I expected this fight, to be honest. But like you say, it was obvious that, frankly, even if Mickey Gall had the capacity to sink a double leg and take Mike Perry down, Mike Perry just pressed a button and said, okay, I'm going to use my muscles and throw you off of me, so it doesn't really matter. He's just an explosive freak when it comes to that kind of stuff. And Mickey Gall just didn't have the chops to overcome it. But, I mean, overall, half-decent showing by Mickey Gall. If he did better than I thought he was going to do. Obviously, I bet on a first-round KO. Yeah.
And it was a good deal to stay away from it. I mean, Mickey Gall showed a little bit of improvement, but obviously, not enough. Right. We'll just sprinkle ever so slightly on this main event because, I mean, like I said, we got to move on. But this was a legitimate fight of the year fight. Like, that over 2.5, I bet, was in serious jeopardy. And if you bet on Hooker, you had some serious value on that. I had them 2-2 going into the 5th round. It was anybody's fight. And in the post-fight interviews, Dustin Poirier said that he got flash knocked out in the 2nd round. Yep. I mean, It could have been over in the 2nd round. What a war, man.
Oh, I'm such a fan of Dustin's and have been like forever, but he's such a dog in there. I mean, just insane will and heart for that guy, and such a great guy. I mean, wins the nicest guy of the year award from the UFC and then goes out and puts on that kind of a banger. Just insane. Hooker brought his A game too. That was a heck of a fight. Just a heck of a fight. But Poirier is a punishing dude to be in there with. The 5th round doesn't feel good for anybody when they're fighting Dustin Poirier. And you could tell going in, as soon as the 5th round started, it was like every time Dustin landed, Hooker dropped to his knees and tried to wrap up his legs. He was obvious that he did not have the juice for the stand-up war anymore. But in the first round, Hooker looked like he was getting some of the better of the exchanges, and he's got a heck of a versatile attack. He's long, he's tough, just an insane fight. Absolutely my fight of the year so far.
Yeah, and you know what? I actually might do a full-blown article on that. I would love to compare JJ and Zhang versus this fight and see which one I actually feel like is my fight of the year. I don't want to say it's fight of the year and rob the ladies, because that fight was an absolute war, and recency bias has a lot of us thinking that this one takes the cake. So keep your eyes out for that one. I might actually dig into it and do a full-blown article on it. So one more time, I want to shout out the chat. We've got 250 live viewers right now, folks. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Let's get right on in to UFC 251. And I apologize, Judd, I'm going to be a little rude so the people can see the names of the fighters. We'll shrink you down off to the side here. Now, remember, everybody, this fight is going to be in Abu Dhabi. These fights are taking place at 6 a.m. local time. So all these fighters are going to have to wake up super early to get ready to fight 6 a.m. their time, so it's on time for us. So there's a lot of struggles, a lot of hurdles they're all going to have to face. We're back in the full-size cage, so we need to keep in mind the little cage and all that handicapping and all those nice caches we had out the window. So rolling straight into this thing, we're kicking the night off with a banger. Martin Day taking on Davey Grant. Judd, I'm just going to go ahead and poke right over to you on this one. Did you look into this one? Do you have any thoughts or ideas on it?
Barely. I don't. This is one of those fights you could convince me to go any number of ways. I think Grant obviously has a better competition, but neither one of these guys is going to be competing for a championship anytime soon. Day, lost his UFC debut. They're both in their early 30s. I just don't see a whole lot of line, of information here that I think that I have that the other guy doesn't have. So I'm probably in a dog or pass spot at this point.
I got you. Okay. Well, and let's take a look at the line after hearing that. So right now, Martin Day is a minus 170 favorite. By the way, this is not a site that sponsors me or anything like that, anybody. This is bestfightodds.com. They just have all the major sports books out there and stuff like that. And you know what? While I'm on that topic, somebody brought it to my attention. I need to go ahead and announce that these betting lines may vary. If I can get a line, that's not necessarily a line that you have access to, so just keep that in mind when we're comparing, what people bet. And then the other thing I want to mention is it varies from country to country. I've made a whole lot of new friends that are from all around the world, and I'm very grateful for each and every one of you. But somebody pointed out that in the UK, the round props act differently than they do in the United States. So, for instance, I had the over 2.5 in the main event this last weekend, and what that means to me is if we hit 2 minutes and 31 seconds in round 3, I cash my bet. What it meant for my friend is that 2.5 rounds pushes it all the way to 3. The fight had to complete round 3 and get into round 4 for him to cash that bet. That surprised your boy. I had not heard of that before. So make sure you check your rules at your local book when you make these bets. So back to the action here. Martin Day is a minus 170 favorite. We got the comeback on Davey Grant about plus 150. And I kind of saw what you were seeing at first, but then I really dug into Martin Day. And he's one of these Hawaiian warriors, man. He's one of these dudes that just comes forward and is always stalking down his opponents. He's got great cage control. He throws a spinning back kick that I believe he's landed and knocked a couple people out with on the regional scene. He's got a really powerful left hook, whether he uses it as a lead or he rips the body with it. He does drop his hands a little bit, though, from what I saw. The weird thing to me is that he's been out of the game for a while. His last fight was against Pingwan Liu back in November of 2018. So we haven't seen this kid for about 2 full years. And he's only 31 years old. So those are the prime of his fighting years. And I'm very, very interested to see what he looks like coming back. I did a little bit of Instagram stalking. Y'all know I like to go and creep on these fighter pages. And he looks good. He looks like he has been taking this thing seriously during the offseason. He's been training hard. His bag work looks good. His hands look crisp. He looks like he hits hard. And then his opponent on the flip side of this thing, Davey Grant, he's a guy that comes to us from Tough, the Ultimate Fighter. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu purple belt, I think. That's the last promotion I saw on him. He does have decent hands. He's got good boxing, good step-in knees, strong top control if he gets there, good ground and pound. So this is kind of a striker versus grappler situation. I think Davey Grant is not long for the UFC. He's 2-3 in his last 5 fights here. Got choked out by Manny Bermudez. Not a ton of shame in that, but he got subbed out in the 3rd round by Damian Stasiak, who's no longer in the UFC. Kind of a bum fighter. That's a bad look. And then everyone's going to look at his record and see that he beat Marlon Chito Vera. And that's one that I think is going to entice a lot of people to bet on him. That wasn't the same Marlon Vera, folks. That was Marlon Vera in a debut. It was his first fight in the UFC. He was just a kid. So him getting bullied, we talk about fading these fighters that come in for their UFC debut, stepping up in competition, all that kind of thing all the time. And that's the perfect example of it. Marlon Vera's gone on to do nothing but incredible things. And most recently, Davey Grant won a split over Grigory Popov, who, if you don't recall, Grigory Popov, he's 0-2 in the UFC so far, and he's a 36-year-old fighter out of Russia that I think is too small for the division. So, honestly, I don't want to lay minus 170 on Martin Day considering all the questions surrounding it, but I've got to pick him to win here.
Yeah, solid lean there. Yep, but this is a heck of a way to get the night started. We're going to see something.
That'll be a fun fight.
Yeah.
I mean, anytime you get these Hawaiian warriors in there, it's never gonna be a bad show, right? Like when was the last Hawaiian that you saw that was boring? Like even the ones that lose are out there fighting tooth and nail, going in to smash before they get caught.
Yep. Is he training with the champ or the former champ now?
You know what? That's actually a good question. I didn't look into that. I think he's on Hawaiian Elite MMA or something like that is his team name.
Okay.
Yeah, Hawaii Elite MMA. Let me see if it pulls up who he's training with there. I didn't see anybody in the pictures and stuff. And hey, speaking of Instagram stalking, a little something for the chat room here. Now, I want to be respectful, but if anybody missed it, Gina Carano decided to post a very tasteful photo. So go hunting. Enjoy.
Nobody missed it.
I don't think anybody missed it. All right, second fight of the night. We've got a ladies fight. Karol Rose, 12-3, taking on Vanessa Melo at 10-7-0. And the last women's fight that I did a handicap on was last week when I absolutely butchered the weight classes of these ladies and didn't have a very good showing here. And I actually got a little beat up in the chat room about it in the YouTube comments because of my slip up. So I'm going to be straight honest with you guys. This one I haven't had time to look into yet. I don't know anything about either of these women. I know they're both relatively new to the UFC. I mean, I think it's Karol Rose's second UFC fight.
Right.
Vanessa Melo is a name that I recognize. She's 0-2 in the UFC herself. Low-level fight, not one that I'm intending to bet, but you never know. We always find sneaky value on these kind of spots. So, Judd, did you look at this one? Because honestly, you're probably going to know more than me.
I did, just real cursory. You're right. Karol Rose is coming off of her debut win in the UFC, so this will be her second fight. And like I said, Vanessa Melo is 0-2 so far in the UFC. The other thing I know is Rose is only 25 years old, so I'm guessing she's going to be taking some jumps up, whereas she's fighting a 32-year-old fighter who's closer to her prime, but probably not going to be adding as many tools to the bag in between fights. But the younger coming off the win fighter in Rosa is also like a 2-1 favorite when I looked at the lines. So probably not looking at laying the wood in that on this low level of a fight where I don't have as much background on the fighters at this point.
I feel you. And I mean, I kind of treat low-level women's MMA kind of like I treat heavyweight MMA, that if you're getting, like my boy Boston Nick is saying, if you're getting that dog money, it's a dog or pass spot if you need to have action on it. So moving on, we've got Julian Paiva taking on Zhalgas Zhumagulov. Okay, let me try that again. Zhalgas Zhumagulov. I'm gonna have to practice that one. Jeez.
Yeah, throwing the towel on that one. That's a tough one.
I give up.
They might be better you than me. Yep.
Hey, what you got on this one, Judd? Did you find anything? You like it?
I'm excited for it. I don't have a whole lot of insight. This is one of those where like if a random bum off of the street gave me a pick, I'd probably jump on it just for fun. We've got a 24-year-old alpha male guy at 19-3 coming off his UFC victory after he lost his first 2 in the UFC. So who knows? One of his losses was to De La Rosa, who we don't think is going to be in the UFC anymore. So we don't really know where this guy is. But at 24 years old at alpha male, I mean, we know he's got training partners. We know he's got coaches. I think he'll come to fight. 31-year-old on a four-fight win streak, including a win over Tyson Nam, who's not a bad name to have on your record after we saw him on the 13th. And the 31-year-old at plus 150, I could see a dogger pass on that.
I'll be honest, this is one of those fights that kind of blew me away. I was expecting to be all over Raulian Paiva. We cashed the under in his last fight when he got the knockout. That was fun, and I kind of feel like he turned a corner. I was all geared up and ready to back this kid. And this is why, folks, when you're betting MMA, the numbers lie. You've got to watch the tape. You absolutely have to do tape study because not everything makes sense just by the numbers. And like you said, he was 0-2 in the UFC, and then he gets Mark De La Rosa. I mean, Mark De La Rosa has been proven to not be UFC caliber. The dude is 0-4 in his last 4 fights, and there's no way he's getting that call again. That's Raulian Paiva's best win so far in the octagon. Now, I will give a little bit of an asterisk to that. He fought Rogerio Bontorin, and that was a back-and-forth war for as long as it lasted. The referee got in the way and stopped the fight 3 times, and it was a big, bad cut that really got that fight stopped, so we never got to see how they really matched up. He cut he cut Bontorin, and then Bontorin repaid the favor and busted him up bad enough that the referee waved the fight off. So really disappointing for that one to stop the way that it was. We can't put a ton of stock into that one, but the Kai Kara France fight, it was a split that I feel like he could have won. I almost feel like he got robbed a little bit on that one. Rewatching the tape, it feels like he could have got it done. But what I have seen from this dude, Zhalgas, is he is one of these dudes facing Russian monsters. He's come over to the UFC, and I'm with you. I like his last couple of fights. Beating Tyson Nam says something. That says that you're not a scrub. You're not fighting guys that don't belong. Tyson Nam has struggled a little bit in the UFC, but he's had really bad matchups. We cashed in big on his last fight just a couple weeks ago. Dude is a solid fighter, and this guy beat him. And then he beat a couple of other guys. I'm not even going to try to say their names for the title over there for FNG. He was the champion. I apologize. The screen just went black on everybody. My father-in-law that taught me how to drink and gamble tried to call me, and I used my phone as my camera. So sorry about that. So I'm really interested in Zhalgas here. I feel like he may have a grappling edge, and he hits hard. I mean, he's one of these guys that just wades forward, does not care what you throw at him, and fires back harder. And the thing about Paiva, even though he's got that reach, those long arms, he's rangy, and he does well using it, kid's hittable. He's young, he makes mistakes, and he's willing to take your shot to land one back. And if you do that against a guy like Zhalgas, I feel like you might be in trouble. So I'm not touching it yet. I'm going to marinate on it. I'm going to do a little bit more research. And honestly, I know the sharps like Paiva. We've talked about Johnny the Greek Gambler. He talks about it all the time. He thinks this kid is the second coming of, I don't know, insert your favorite MMA fighter here.
What is the thing? I think the 24-year-old has more experience than the 31-year-old in this fight. I mean, that's wild. He's absolutely, putting the hammer down on the career track. So more power to him. And if he's adding those skills in the gym, who's to say? This is a show me fight. If he comes out there and looks like a stud, we'll be all over.
Agreed, but I might take that one last shot at fading him since so far he has struggled and hasn't really proved it to me. The other thing, again, hey, keep an eye out for my Total Madness show. The totals are going to be out on this one since it's such a big fight. On Thursday, I'll be dropping my video for Total Madness, breaking down the overs and unders and how I feel about these fights from that side of things. And I feel like this one might be one where we don't pick a side. Maybe we pick a total. So stay tuned for that one. Wrapping up the early prelims, we've got a heavyweight tilt. Marcin Tybura taking on Alexandr Romanov. And this one is going to be fun. So if you've been on the show, if you've been with the podcast for some time, you know I am not a fan of Marcin Tybura. Last time out, he faced Sergey Spivak, and I took my opportunity to step on this man's neck. So one of my favorite handicappers talks about in sports like baseball, NHL, you step on the neck of a team that's struggling. You take that opportunity. When everyone says they should bounce back, take that dog money and go for the throat. And I like to do that in MMA. Unfortunately, he kind of spoiled the party for me. He ended up beating Sergey Spivak. and I might have an opportunity here to try again. Alexandr Romanov is an 11-0 undefeated heavyweight coming over from Russia. He's another one of these guys that we got to wonder a little bit about his level of competition. We'll say there's a question surrounding that, but he's been handling them. He has a 100% finish rate, 5 knockouts, 6 submissions. And the UFC is looking for the young, hot, undefeated prospect to get the W here. What do you think, Judd?
I'm totally jacked for this fight. I love that this is the final fight of the early prelims. This is going to be an awesome night of fights. Like you said, Alexander's coming off as good of a record as you can bring into the octagon. Now the question is this a carnival act, or is this dude for real? And we're going to find out, because he's fighting somebody who's had 10 UFC fights and has. Now, mind you, they're in the loss column, but has some names on his record. He's been in there with Verdum. He's been in there with Eric Beast Lewis. He's been in there with Augusto Sakai. He's seen a couple guys who know how to fight before, and we'll find out what Alexandr can do with him. But, to be honest, just for the juice that comes with having an exciting, younger heavyweight fighter, I'm hoping that Alexander's for real. It would be a blast to have him in the ranks.
For sure. I completely agree. This is another one I'm going to have to spend a little bit of time on. So everybody in the chat looking for me to lock the bet in right now. I haven't done it yet. And I'm sorry, I forgot to move this little screen behind me here. I've been trying to keep up with the chat and highlight your comments. I know me and Judd are going back and forth. I'm not interacting quite as much with the chat today because of that. So I do apologize, but that's we're having a little bit of fun today. So
anybody who's got a chance, you can find Alexandr Romanov. The UFC can't find a picture of him, but you can find a million videos of him on YouTube. And his fights are a ton of fun to watch. And mind you, he's in there with some guys that are 50 years old and some guys that look like they should be fighting light heavyweight. But he's throwing dudes around the ring and double hammer fisting dudes into tapping out. He's an absolute monster. And for what the size that he's carrying, to have the explosiveness and the gas tank, frankly, I'm shocked when you see a guy go that explosive for finishes in the second, after the first round in heavyweight at the lower levels. I'm interested in watching this guy. It'll be fun to watch.
He's a prospect I'm very excited about, and especially getting basically a pick'em against Marcin Tybura, a guy that I'm all in on fading. I might end up locking that play sooner or later, just simply out of principle. The fact that I want to fade this guy and I've got an opportunity to do so against a seemingly legit prospect, we might end up taking that.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what the props come in on that as well, because who knows where they come out. But if Alexandr is who he looks like he may be, then I think he'll come out and finish Marcin Tybura. I don't see him lasting at this point.
I completely agree. I like it. Next fight up, heading over to the preliminary card, we've got Leonardo Santos taking on Roman Bogotimov. See, and that's Bogatov. Jeez, I thought I nailed it. I'm sitting here going, I crushed it. I said that one right, and then I heard myself and went, oh.
Just like there's some fights that the best move is to dodge and grab the popcorn. That's how I am with announcing these names. I'm like, Clint, go for it.
Hey, the beauty of doing the live show. Normally speaking, I'd cut the camera and do a little quick chop and get back to it, and you'd never hear me. But fuck it, we'll do it live. So enjoy my screw-ups live on camera in front of 300 people. Thank you all for tuning in. Without you and your support, this show wouldn't be what it is. So thank you all for tuning in. Let's make some more money. Leonardo Santos. This is maybe the saddest story to me in the UFC today. This guy is a destroyer. He's incredible. I love this guy, and we haven't been able to make the amount of money on him that we should have because he disappeared for 3 years. Now he's coming back at 40 years old. I love this guy, and my rules. We have very, very few rules here when it comes to betting on the Die Hard MMA podcast. One of them is that you don't bet on a guy or a girl that's over 40 unless you've got a damn good reason to do so. And so far, my damn good reason for this fight is it's Leonardo freaking Santos.
This dude's a freak. You look at some of the guys, he's got wins over Anthony Rocco Martin, over Kevin Lee. Mind you, they're back in 2015 because we haven't seen this dude in a million years. But he's got a solid record. He is a world beater. Yep.
Absolutely. And this is one where I don't have a whole lot to say at this point on it because I need to dig into his opponent. I'm not sure how to feel about this guy, Roman. He's making his UFC debut. He's coming to us from the M1 Global Challenge, so he's in a decent organization. And right now, we're getting a huge line. The books have finally caught up on Santos. He's a minus 185 favorite. Comeback is plus 160 on the new kid. And that has me scratching my head just a little bit. I need to read into Roman. I need to see what he's capable of. I need to see what he can do because he's the kind of guy that'll shit in our apple pie here. You know, all of us will be all up on Santos. The secret's out. We all know how good he is. But now that he's hit 40 and he's fighting an undefeated prospect, one of these angry Russian grinders, I don't want to get caught with my pants down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely not. And Roman has 5 subs out of 10 fights, something like that. He is 10-0. He's 29 years old. I mean, that's, he's not a pushover. When I see a guy who's finished half his fights by sub, I look at the other guy and go like, does this guy have any grappling? Because if not, he's probably going to be in a bad way. But Santos has 9 subs himself. It's not like he's never been on the mat before. And
insanely high level grappling.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, if that's all that Roman brings to the table, then Santos may need to be that favorite. There actually may be some value there, but I can't wait to watch the weigh-ins. I can't wait to see if Santos is back, or if this is a farewell tour, introducing a young prospect through a name and a record like Santos. Who knows? But I'm jacked to see this fight.
Yeah, this one should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Chat is going nuts, by the way. If you got the Conor versus Khabib that every single MMA show melts down into, y'all could just chill. Khabib's got to deal with Gaethje. Conor's retired as far as we know at this point. Let's talk UFC 251. And a fighter who I absolutely hate, cannot stand, Makwan Amirkhani. This is one of those guys whose face is just so punchable, Judd. If I could take a shot knowing he wasn't going to have the opportunity to come back and kick my ass, I would love to punch Makwan Amirkhani in the face. Something about him rubs me wrong, and especially as a sports bettor, that's just a bad attitude to have because this guy's a moneymaker. I need to change my attitude because he has got some serious skills. His ground game is unreal sick. He's got really good wrestling, chain takedowns, and once he gets you there, his offensive submission game is next level. He's got really improved hands. He took a while off to improve his boxing, get his hands where they needed to be, and honestly, he digs deep. I'd love to say that he's one of those bully types, that he's good at being the hammer, but he's not good at being the nail. But in his last couple of fights, he's proved the exact opposite of that. When he was in there against Shane Burgos had to kill him in the 3rd round to get him out of there. He never stopped getting up. He never stopped coming forward. And even when he got in trouble against Chris Fishgold the fight before, he dug deep. He turned it around in the 2nd round and choked him out. I mean, I don't have anything bad to say from a fighting perspective about Makwan Amirkhani, and I'm more than likely going to be backing him here in this spot. Danny Henry's one of those guys that's got decent grappling. He's got high output, which is good, I guess, but he drops his hands, and he was struggling with the takedowns against Daniel Tamer, which, come on, bro, if you're struggling with the takedowns of freaking Tamer, you're going to be in trouble. He is good in the clinch. He does have some good pop on his punches, but he's got one of the weirdest trajectories so far in the UFC. So he comes in against Daniel Tamer. He squeezes by that win. Did not look good. Did not look impressive against a fighter that's in the UFC. And then he takes on Hakeem Dawodu. Now, Mean Hakeem, that's a dude that you want to have on your resume. Not a lot of people are beating Mean Hakeem, and I love him. I'm super high on Hakeem. He comes out and he blasts him with a right hand, rocks him immediately, locks up a blood choke, and puts him unconscious in less than a minute. And I mean, unreal for you to be able to do that, but I'm almost starting to think that was a bit of a fluke. He comes out against Dan Ige, which, granted, this is Dan Ige. I'm high on the dude. Yeah. He's a top 10 fighter. Very, very talented.
In a couple of weeks for a reason. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's no shame in losing to a guy like Dan Ige, but he got mauled. I mean, he got absolutely wrecked. So he blows the brakes off of Hakeem, and then he gets the favor returned in his next fight. I'm not sure that I'm sold on Danny Henry unless he hits that button. And with the amount of punishment that Makwan Amirkhani was able to take from a guy like Shane Burgos, I don't know if that one punch is going to do it. And if it doesn't, this is going to end up on the ground. and I think it's going to end up with Makwan Amirkhani choking him out.
Yeah, I'm heavy on Makwan at this fight. You know, I think he needs to change his nickname. You know, Mr. Finland is a rough nickname for a fighter. You know, the way that he poses for his social media pictures, he needs to be Mr. Steal Your Girl. But this is that moment. Everybody who's got a significant other they watch the fights with, hit that record button when he walks out, and all the comments that your women make, just have them on lockdown so that you can repeat them right back when Paige comes out, and then you don't get in trouble. Keep your receipts. This is the moment. But I'm heavy on Makwan here. I mean, he made the mistake with Shane Burgos. He thought that if you punch and kick a guy in the face, it'll bother him. You know, everybody makes that mistake with Shane Burgos, but he's been in there against the higher competition. He's a solid guy. He's got all the skills. I'm very impressed with him. And as goofy a look as he has, he's got the right attitude. I mean, he seems to be a humble, you know, come forward, get after it kind of guy. He dropped a flying knee in his debut. You know, I mean, he brings it. You know, I'm a fan of him. I wish I could, you know, could get some old school Drysdale type dude in there to teach him how to not to look like a schmo when he's taking pictures. But whatever, you know, he's a stud. I'm on him for this fight. I'll wait to see what the line does. I hate to lay chalk on guys, especially the undercard. But you know, I may throw him in a parlay or I may do something else. But I think Makwan's the side to be on here.
I'm with you there. I don't know that I'll play him straight. I might look for an inside the distance type of line because he does struggle late in fights. That if he doesn't finish it early, there is the chance that he gets ground out in the later rounds. So maybe if we can get a good submission prop or an inside the distance prop, maybe that's the way to go. But honestly, I wouldn't hate parlaying him in this spot either because I do think he gets the finish, and I think he probably gets it rather early. I got to tell you guys, though, Cousin Judd just laid down the knowledge. Probably the best tip that you're going to get on this show tonight was make sure you've got video evidence of your women drooling over Makwan Amirkhani before we get to the main card, because when you have some kind of a little comment or a whoo that slips out when Paige VanZant comes out, you have proof, you have some defense. Mm-hmm. I love it. So we've got Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos taking on Muslin Salikhov. And this is one of the sleeper fights on the card, in my opinion. This is one of those ones that it's close to the end of the prelims. It's not on the main card, but I would love to see this fight on the main card of like a fight night type of thing. This is a phenomenal fight against two really good fighters, and I'm saving this one. I didn't have time to look into this one. I'm savoring it because I can't wait to go back and watch the tape on these guys. Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, Capoeira. He fights for that name. They call him Capoeira for a reason. Dude is crazy with the movement, comes at crazy angles, big knockouts, 14 knockouts of his 22 wins. I mean, dude is unreal. So fun to watch. Good submission game, big time power. He's going to be exciting. And then you've got the king of Kung Fu on the other side of the cage, 16-2 with 12 wins by KO since Muslin Salikhov has come to the UFC. He's been nothing but a gravy train for us. He's got, let's see, he dropped his UFC debut against Alex Garcia, and then we got good prices after that. He knocked out Ricky Rainey, knocked out Nordine Taleb, and then he won a decision over Leonardo Strapoli, which, by the way, that was a very, very good fight, a close fight. I think I was on Strapoli in that one, so Salikhov surprised me even more with that win. And this is a crazy fight, different level of different caliber of opponent, different level of competition. So I'm curious to see what everybody thinks, and even what I find out when I get into my own tape study here, because this one's intriguing. What do you feel like on this one, Judd?
I feel spoiled as heck. This is going to be a great card. This is one of those sneaky cards where, okay, yeah, Connor's not on the card. We don't have John Jones on the card. But a bunch of these matchups, I mean, I can't wait to see Santos. I can't wait to see what our Alexandr Romanov is bringing to the table. The Makwan Danny Henry fight's a legit fight. This fight is a legit fight. Mm-hmm. I'm very interested in this. Now, I look and I go, okay, Salikhov seems to be the guy who wants to stand in the middle of the ring and trade blows because he's a powerful brute dude. Their strike differential is wild. I mean, Dos Santos is up like 1.4 strike differential, whereas Salikhov is like less than half of a significant strike advantage.
He's much more low volume, but he hits so hard.
Yeah, I'm in a trade with you because when I land, it sucks for you. And Dos Santos is more of a mover and a striker. So who knows and what's the game plan? Don't know. But this is a legit fight to be on the. We're still in the prelim card. You kidding? This is a legit fight. I can't wait to see. I've talked myself into both directions so many times since I looked at this card that I don't know what to do. So at this point, I'll probably just wait and see if there's some line movement. Right when I looked at it, it was basically a pick 'em. And I was going, yeah, that feels about right. Who knows what's going to happen here? So I'll probably wait, see if there's any kind of juicy info from the weigh-ins. If one of them comes in looking like a beast or the other one comes in out of shape, who knows? But, I am a little bit concerned with the KO power for Dos Santos. Yeah, he's got 14 knockouts. 3 of them in the UFC, something like that out of 10 fights. So that's he was knocking a bunch of guys out before he got here. That's cool. 3 in the UFC is nothing to sneeze at. But Muslim's knocked out half his UFC opponents. I mean, I think his power is legit at this point. So who knows what happens.
This one's going to be really interesting. I can't wait to get a little bit more into it. One more time, I want to go ahead and thank you all for tuning into the show. Without you guys, this podcast wouldn't be much. Make sure you subscribe to the Die Hard MMA podcast on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to Odds HQ on YouTube as well. We're going to be bringing a ton of content now that sports are coming back over at Odds HQ, and Die Hard MMA podcast, as the name suggests, is all about MMA and your boy. So be sure to show some love on both sides of the coin, please. We would greatly appreciate it. I am this close to 1,000 subscribers. If you guys wouldn't mind pushing me over that ledge, I would be forever grateful. We've got the main event for the preliminary card here. Volkan, no time Oezdemir, taking on Jiri Prochazka, another last name that I'm going to have a hard time with. And I need to do some research before my live show with Jimmy the Bag tomorrow. If you guys want to hear more of these breakdowns, I'll be going live with Jimmy the Bag, my boy Mo Scream, my boy Nick, Boston Nick MMA. We'll do kind of a round table for this fight tomorrow as well. So we're going to have to practice these pronunciations before we hit that live. That'll be over on Odds HQ. This is the one fight on the card, Judd, that I've already made a bet on, my dude. I'm taking no time. I'm taking Volkan. Right? No time Oezdemir. I got him at -160. I feel a little stupid. He was sitting at -150, and I couldn't quite pull the trigger. I hadn't finished my tape study yet. By the time I decided I wanted to make that move, it was already up to -160, so I'm not the only one seeing it. This is one of those perfect fade the kid stepping up in competition spots for me. Jiri has been insanely impressive. He's coming over 26-3 with 23 knockouts. I mean, unreal kind of record, unreal kind of hype for this guy. And I know a lot of people are going to be excited about this dog because of what he's done. But his level of competition, in my opinion, is insanely questionable. I mean, you look at his last 3 fights. CB Holloway, who's a broken 185er who moved up to 205 and never should have taken that fight. Fabio Maldonado, who was scared to even step in the ring, was obviously just there for a paycheck. And then Muhammad King Mo Lawal, who actually took him all the way into the 3rd round of a 3-round title fight, I might add. It wasn't 5, it was only 3. And Mo didn't look half bad. Mo bloodied this guy up. And Mo, that was his retirement fight. After that fight happened, he was done. And Judd, Mo gassed out. That's the only reason the fight ended the way that it did, was Mo had no more gas in the tank. This guy had nothing to offer. Volkan is a legitimate UFC contender level fighter. He's got heavy power in his hands. He's struggled a little bit with the grappling with high level guys like Daniel Cormier, and then he got choked out by Anthony Smith in a fight that, in my opinion, he was winning up until that point. He arguably beat Dominic Reyes, who then went on to arguably beat John Jones. He flatlined Ilir Latifi, and even though he had a close fight with Rakic, I also think he did enough to win that one as well. He's been battle tested at the UFC level, and this kid's stepping over. I feel like he's coming in the deep end, and I think he's coming in too hard. He leaves his chin open, Judd. If Mo was able to tag him, Volkan's gonna be able to tag him.
Yeah, I've got in my notes for this fight, I've got that Jiri's a chance taker. This is his UFC debut. That the names on his record look a lot better than what they should based on when he fought these dudes. If you had beat King Mo in 2015, I'd be taking my hat off to you. But if you actually look down his record, King Mo beat him in their first fight. That was a rematch fight.
Yep.
So back when King Mo was King Mo beat this dude. And this guy won a close rematch when King Mo gassed out. you already touched on Fabio and CB, and I'm right there with you. I think he's getting a little bit too much juice, a little bit too much respect from the sports books. He's on an 8-fight KO streak, so okay, but against what competition? Volkan has fought the top of that division and a ton of them. He hasn't had 1 or 2 fights against the top. You read through this dude's record, good luck trying to find somebody he hasn't fought in that division. Massive step up in competition. A guy who fights with his hands down, is used to knocking everybody out. Good luck. I thought when I looked at this line, I was expecting Volkan to be a minus 300 minimum, minus 400 favorite. Minus 170 all day long. All day long.
I'm right there with you, man. And we talk about how timing is everything in fights, right? Like, look at Floyd freaking Mayweather. That dude knew how and when to get those fights going. He fought guys when they were green, and then he fought guys when they were old. And that's exactly what this Jiri guy has been doing. He's been fighting the right fighters at the right time, and now he's fighting a legit contender. He's going to have to prove it to me. That's it. Yep. That's all this is. You got to prove it to me, kid. If he comes in here and he knocks out my boy Volkan, who's a guy that I've been extremely high on in the UFC, in my opinion, the dark horse still of the 205-pound division. If he takes him out, that's fine. The bookie can have my money on that one. You got to prove it to me.
Yeah, I looked at Oezdemir's record, and I'm going, hey, the last 8 guys he's fought, I would have as 2-1 favorites over Jiri minimum. So
there you go.
This is a massive step up. And I'm going to be looking at the Oezdemir by KO props, and I'm going to be looking at having him. I looked at maybe throwing Volkan and Makwan in a parlay because I think both of them will win, and the odds aren't crazy, so you might actually get roughly even money on that parlay. But I feel dumber than you do because I hit Volkan at minus 170, but I still think we've got twice as much value as we should there.
I mean, I do like him up until minus 200. I mean, I wouldn't parlay Volkan Oezdemir myself simply because of the threat that Jiri possesses on the feet. He will always have that puncher's chance. He could be the parlay bed shitter of the week. So I'm going to go ahead and play him straight. But yeah, I like Volkan here, and I like what he's going to be capable of doing against this guy, Jiri. But let's move on to the main card. It's time, folks. It's time. We're on the main card of the absolute biggest banger of a UFC card we could ever have expected. 3 title fights in one night and one extremely exciting fight, and then we got the ladies. So
dude, since when is no time on an undercard? This is a great card. I'm so excited for this one.
So good. And here's the thing. Everybody knows what's going on with this first fight. Ribas versus VanZant. VanZant's on the last fight of her contract, and she's looking for more money. She's been very vocal about the fighter pay. When she's working her Instagram, if y'all want a treat, go ahead and head over to Paige VanZant's Instagram. She knows how to work the thing, and she's always taking tasteful nudies with her, her husband, her boyfriend, Mr. VanZant, whatever you want to call him. They have a good time over there. But she's making way more doing that than she does fighting. So she's just fighting straight for the love of it. And the UFC is saying, look, you're going to ask for a huge price tag because you're a draw, because you're pretty. We don't want to pay that. So they're throwing her to the wolves here against Amanda Ribas. They are looking to take her down a peg to try to either make her cheaper when it comes to negotiations and to boost Amanda Ribas. Like, that's what the UFC is looking to do in this spot. However, I've looked for every angle under the sun to take Paige VanZant. Y'all know I love my dogs. Y'all know I'm a crazy person. I'm trying to take Paige VanZant. And she's been off for an entire year training. That's kind of the thing I'm sitting on here at this point. Her striking is raw. It's not good. She's got a left body kick. She's got a jumping switch kick. She's extremely athletic. That's really been the only thing that's carried her so far in her MMA career, is that she's been able to out-athlete her opponents. But her striking, especially with her hands, is pretty awful. Ribas, on the other hand, her striking is very crisp, very good, keeps the range, and she's a high-level black belt. She's very dangerous on the mat. Paige VanZant's been able to knock a couple of subs, and I don't see that ever happening here, someone the caliber of Ribas. So we've really got to be able to find a way that Paige can win this thing if we want to take that 5-1 shot on it. And I don't know if I can get there, Judd. I'm trying, man. What's jumping out to you on this fight?
Yeah, I think you nailed it when you said that if they're going to pay Paige what Paige what Paige is due, based on what she brings in terms of eyeballs, then they want to use it to prop up Ribas. I think that's what this matchup is. Ribas is the obvious favorite in this fight. I have a really hard time throwing 8.5 units for a chance to win one, so I'm not going to be betting the favorite in this. I'm with you. I may sprinkle some Paige for fun, but Amanda's got one loss on her record. It was when she was 22 years old. She's beat Randa Marcos, beat Mackenzie Dern. I mean, she's got some scalps. I think she's the favorite for a reason. I'll thoroughly enjoy watching Paige, make her walk out, but I don't expect she's going to enjoy how this fight goes.
So let me tell you my crazy tinfoil hat here. What I'm looking at is Amanda Ribas has been insanely impressive, and she's got better accolades than Paige so far in her career. She fought Emily Spitfire Whitmire, one of those meh fights. Okay, I like Emily, but okay. And then she fought Mackenzie Dern. Now, Dern is incredible on the mat herself. So this turned into a fight where neither girl really wanted to get too tied up on the mat, and Ribas was a far better striker. So she didn't have to worry about anything. It never hit the mat. She boxed up Dern. She won an easy decision. Then she fought Randa Marcos. I need to go back and rewatch that fight. That's the one so far that I haven't got to, so I don't want to speak on it and speak potentially wrong. But in my opinion, Ribas has yet to fight anybody that's able to strike with her or stand with her on the feet. She also hasn't fought anybody that's been any kind of a threat on the mat, and she's a natural 115-pound fighter.
Yeah, she's not.
Paige is a 125er. And on top of that, we haven't seen her in over a full year. Her last fight was in January of 2019. So with her connection with Mr. VanZant, he's a phenomenal fighter himself and appears to be streaking. Paige is in unreal shape, folks. Like, if you go check her Instagram, the recent pictures, not the nudie ones, but the recent ones, she's training her ass off. And she's got a six-pack like I've never seen before. She's put on some muscle with Mr. VanZant. And the other thing is, honestly, I think Paige is smart enough to know what's going on here. I got to wonder if her strategy isn't to grapple this chick and grind out a very boring 3-round decision. And at these odds, especially if they keep on getting wider, guys, I might have to take a stab on Paige VanZant. I might be forced to do it because Ribas, as incredible as she is still very young and still very green. And if Paige comes in with the perfect game plan, is bigger and stronger and able to muscle her around and keep strong in her defense, she could squeeze this one out. And if we get in the realm of, 6 or 7 to 1, guys, I might have to.
You're telling me there's a chance. Yeah. Hey, the funnest thing in gambling is throwing a little action at the dog and having it cash. So I can be talked into that for sure.
Well, and look where it opened. The bookie opened this thing at plus 235. So don't get me wrong. They knew she's a big underdog. She's supposed to be a big underdog. But we're talking plus 600 now? You're telling me she's got, what, a 5% chance? A 4% chance of winning this fight? Folks, this is a cage fight. You're locking these two girls in there, and only one of them leaves with the money. Like, right. I don't know. I don't know that I'm going to do it just yet. So nobody freak out. It's not an official bet. I haven't made the play yet. But I'm very tempted to take that dog shot on Paige VanZant. Moving right along, we've got Jessica Andrade taking on Rose Namajunas, the rematch. This is one that I am so stumped on, Judd. You got to help me out here, buddy, because I made one of the biggest bets of my betting career on Rose Namajunas in the last fight with Jessica Andrade. And I about cried when Rose got smashed on her head and the fight ended the way that it did because she looked like a complete beast coming out in that first round.
She was definitely winning that fight prior to the slam heard around the world. I'm sitting here shaking my head because I'm going, a year ago, this was a main event. This card is sick. We're not even close to the end of this card.
Oh, my gosh, I know.
We're getting this rematch. I'm a big fan of Rose. I think she looked great in this matchup. Andrade, wonderful slam. That was obviously the difference maker. But, and then comes out and loses her title in the next fight. And, got pieced up in it. But against somebody who seemed to have a little bit more pop on the punches than Rose did maybe. But, it is funny when you go, okay, these guys fought a year ago, and Jessica won by finish, and yet Rose is a 2-1 favorite on the cards for this one, and we haven't seen her since. It's a wild fight. I have no idea what's going to happen in this fight. No idea. I'm a big fan of Rose, so I'll probably be looking to try to find a spot for her on my picks, but I don't know what to do with this fight.
I feel you, man. And the thing that's keeping me the most away from it is the freaking line. Rose as a 2-1 favorite after that last fight has me really scratching my head. I mean, that was a fluky knockout. Like, let's be real.
Yeah, of course.
I'm agreeing with my boy Michael Lunday right here. That was a fluky knockout. But the fact remains that Andrade has the kind of raw power to recreate something like that. You know, she absolutely can land that big bomb. She absolutely can land that big slam. We've got 15 minutes for Rose to stay away from it. Now, I do think that they've likely game planned differently. They won't go to that same submission defense for the slam and put her in that type of position. I mean, obviously, you've got to assume they've patched that hole for the game plan. And what's Jessica Andrade going to do differently? She was having a hard time closing the distance last time. She was winging big punches, and Rose just wasn't there to be hit. And the other side of this thing, I'm seeing the chat. I can't post all the comments that are coming up because they're talking about the mental instability of Rose, and we've talked for a long time. She struggles, man. She has a hard time with anxiety. She has a hard time getting right for fights. Coming in and facing your boogeyman or your boogie woman, the person that destroyed you and took everything from you the last time out. How is she mentally here? There's not many fighters that we have to really think about that aspect of their game. Rose is one of them. You have to be very, very concerned and very clear with where she is mentally. And honestly, that's something that is tipping me in her favor here because I've done my Instagram stalking. She's training out of a little corner box style gym. It's a garage, man. And she's got JJ Aldrich in there with her, and she's got Pat Barry, and that's it. And to me, in my opinion, that's the best place that you could possibly be for Rose. She lost a couple family members to COVID-19, and she's done nothing. She's doing the Rocky move, man. She called up her guru. They have locked the door. She's chasing chickens. Like, she's out there doing stuff where there's no distractions. She's climbing the mountain to fight Drago. She doesn't have anyone bothering her right now. And to me, that puts me in a very dangerous mindset for Rose. I definitely want to back her here. I just don't know if I can get there at that price.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. You said it perfectly. I mean, when Joanna was at the top of the totem pole, Rose was the one who stepped in there and went monk on her at the weigh-ins, and then came out and pieced her up, and everybody was shocked, including me. She's got some serious skills, and she does have a unique mindset. I like Rose. I was a fan of her when she was on Tough. But 2-1 favorite against the person who just beat. It's tough. It's real tough. But I'm so excited to watch this fight. I'm more excited to watch this fight than I am to bet on this fight at this point. But insane that we're getting this far down the card.
Yeah, I completely agree. And this is one that might end up being a popcorn and fireball type of fight, folks. It might be best to just stay away from it unless you know something that I don't, because Jessica Andrade is coming out for revenge as well. I mean, she just went to war with Weili Zhang. Terrible game plan. Awful game plan. Just charging straight forward into the bigger, stronger power puncher and got blasted, paid her dues there. You know, she's going to have a different game plan too, right? Like, she's not going to come out charging forward like that and potentially risking losing that. So the only thing I can think of is I need to check the totals on this one, but that might be the way to play it if you absolutely had to have some action down on it, is pick whether you think it's going to go under or over. Let's go ahead and move on. We are getting into the good stuff, my guy. First title fight on the card. There are three, folks. There are three. Before we get into the main cards, we've bounced all the way up to a new high, 362 live viewers on the show right now. Thank you all so much for jumping in here with us. We're hoping to keep this gravy train rolling. We're on a 3-fight winning streak, I want to say. On the first 3 fights since the return from COVID-19, we squeaked out a little profit, and we're coming off a massive 10-unit winning night. So thank you for hanging out with us. Make sure you subscribe to the Die Hard MMA podcast, and make sure you subscribe to Odds HQ, because we're going to bring tons of content going forward, and we're going to keep putting money in those pockets for free. Petr Yan taking on Jose Aldo. Dear God, man. Like, what? This is an unreal matchup. One of those ones that I never thought that I would ever see. We're talking 2 generations of fighters in previously different weight classes. Whoever saw this fight coming?
I'm so jacked for this card. I can't believe we got to wait a weekend in between. I'm licking my chops already.
Saturday's going to suck. We're all going to wake up on Saturday and then just be sad and disappointed when there's nothing to watch.
Yep. Peter's an absolute beast. He looks like he's on a rocket ship straight to the title. He's just a freak. One of these guys who almost fights better the harder you hit him. I don't know what it looks like when this guy loses, because he's 6-0 in the UFC with 3 finishes and 3 unanimous decision victories. No one has showed us the path to beat this guy. So I don't know what we're going to see from Jose, but Aldo's strong. Looked great in his last fight against top level competition. He's 33. I can't believe he's only 33. I feel like I've been watching this guy fight for 50 years at this point. I mean, he's been around forever, had some great fights against, some top-level fighters. This is his second fight at 135 after the quote-unquote loss to Marlon. But wild. I like Jan here. This is another one. I'm more excited to watch it than I am to bet it because, I'm kind of where the casino is on this one, so I don't see a ton of value in it, but I don't know what to do with this fight yet. I may look at – I really do like Jan here. I don't like betting, 235 to win 100 on this fight, so I don't know what – I'll probably look at the props. I'll look at the parlays. I'll see what's going on, but I'm a little gun shy, I got to tell you, like after a night like we had last weekend, I'm almost feeling myself too much. And I'm wanting to, tap the brakes and double check myself, fact check myself, because, we're on the gravy train. I don't want to get off anytime soon.
I am right there with you, man. And honestly, I'm glad that you said that, because to all the haters out there that want to come after me after I've done so well the last couple weeks, don't you worry, my friends. You'll get your chance. Because everyone remember, this is gambling. All right, we've been doing real well. We've been doing real hot lately. The bounces have been going our way. The day will come where they don't. All right, we will get some of those bad decisions that go against us. We'll get robbed on a split decision. We'll get a fighter that slips on a banana peel and get knocks out, and we'll have a bad night. It's going to happen. So you haters, go ahead, wait, bide your time. You can call me out in a week or two when we do that. But the rest of you, just remember, gambling, there's no crystal ball. So we'll take a shot. It's all educated guesses. So we're going to take our best stab at it. We'll keep trying to give you some good winners, but just remember, I'm in this thing with you. Anytime I tell you guys I'm making a bet, that's just my action. I'm not telling you to go bet that. You make the choice at the end of the day, whether or not you want to put your money down. I'm telling you what I'm on, and it's your choice to do with it what you will after that point. For this fight, Judd, I couldn't have agreed any better with what you said. I absolutely love Petr Yan, and I've been on this guy for a long time, and I got spooked watching the tape. Getting ready for this show that we're on right now, I got spooked watching the tape because I expected to come in here and tell you guys double max bet like I'm laying the mortgage on Petr Yan. He should wreck Jose Aldo, and I'm a little nervous. So Petr Yan fights out of Tiger Muay Thai, absolutely one of my favorite gyms of all time. Well-rounded fighters with incredible skill sets coming out of there. Love that gym. And this dude's getting better. Like you said, he's almost better when he's angry. He's kind of hulkish, right? Like you hit him and he's going to go green and come back at you and hit you harder to make you pay for that. I do like that. But when you're fighting a striker that's as slick and as smooth as Jose Aldo, and obviously he's still got that punch. I mean, he put out Renato Moicano and Jeremy Stevens with a body shot just last year. He's still got the power. My concerns with Jose Aldo is the weight class. I know he made the successful cut. I faded him against Marlon Moraes because of the weight cut last time, and he shocked me that he made it and made it apparently so easily. And then he looks damn good the night of the fight. I know a lot of people were talking about how he should have won that fight, and it's been really contentious as far as who won, Marlon or Aldo. I personally think that Marlon did win that fight ever so slightly by being the busier fighter, and this is where I get my angle here for this fight. Jose Aldo was stalking Marlon in that fight, but he wasn't doing a lot of throwing. And when you watch the tape on Jose Aldo from when he was up a weight class to now, he really has to conserve his energy. I think he's got gas tank issues, and when he was fighting Aldo, there was a whole lot less movement, a whole lot less feinting. So even though he was chasing Marlon, he was stalking him down, you may be going, Clint, what do you mean there was less movement? He was going after him the whole time. He wasn't feinting. He wasn't setting anything up. He wasn't getting flinches or reactions out of Marlon. It was all straight power shots. When he decided to throw, he threw. That was it. That's going to get you in trouble against a guy like Jan. We haven't seen Jan in trouble. Every single time he's got hit with a big shot, I know Jimmy Rivera hit him with a couple big ones, and actually Uriah Faber hit him with a couple of big ones. He smiles. This guy is mean, and he looks for those battles. So this is a 5-round title fight, folks. Petr Yan is the dude that turns it up. Petr Yan is the guy that comes for you in round 3 when you're starting to slow just a little bit. He goes for the kill, and he is so patient. That's the thing that's so dangerous about him. He sits back and he waits. He's got that killer instinct where he doesn't overextend. He hurts you, and he knows it. And then he sits on it, and he knows he's going to do it again in about a minute. So he's deadly the later this fight goes. In my opinion, Aldo needs to get this thing done early if he's going to have a shot, because with that drastic weight cut, we're talking championship weight here, Judd. He doesn't get a 1-pound allowance. He's got to get all the way down. And we saw what Max Holloway did to him in round 3 of both of their fights. When he turns it up later, as Aldo's turning it down, he gets the finish. So honestly, I'm going to look at a total on this one. I'm on the Petr Yan side. I was a little scared when I first started watching it, and then when I figured these things out on the Jose Aldo side, my confidence came back. So I threw you all for a little loop there. I'm still definitely on Petr Yan in this fight. I do think there might be some value. The line is definitely going to be a little bit wide here. I know a bunch of people taking the shot on Jose Aldo. I think we're going to have a very sneaky opportunity at a total on this one, and I'm predicting a round 4 TKO for Petr Yan.
There you go. I'm with that. And, we may get our little sprinkle action on rounds 4 and 5 or, something like that with Jan. There you go. He's, you got to make that shirt, by the way.
I want to so bad. Just my head on the sprinkle bay. It's just a fun one. It's always a fun one when you've got on one side a fighter who every time he touches guys, they flinch up and act like they haven't been hit like that before, which I guess both of these guys, but Jose Aldo is the person I'm talking about. And then on the other side, you've got a guy who every time anybody hits him, he smiles and starts fighting harder and breaks guys down. Who knows what happens? But I think what happens is what we've seen with Jan. Unfortunately for Jose, I think that he's not going to be able to come forward and stalk and be first all the time and dictate how this fight goes, because Petr will wade through whatever he needs to wade through. He'll take it, he'll take a body kick, if he needs to. He'll take some leg kicks. He'll smile and go, "That's very cool, and congrats to you on landing that. Now watch this, and let's see how this, let's see how it works out for you." I don't see a way for Jose to come out of this with the win. I think Petr wins the fight. I think Peter's somebody who we're going to be watching for a long, long time at the top of this division. He's 27 years old. Yeah. Unreal how good and how young this guy is. And he's 27. Yeah,
he keeps turning it up. At the end of the fights, he looks better than he does walking out. I don't know what happens to this guy.
And Aldo's one of those weird cases. He's only 33. He's only 33. How is he not ancient at this point? But we got to remember fight miles, folks. At a certain point, even if you're a young man, he's been fighting his entire life. I mean, he made his debut in 2004, and he's been that long reigning champion in the WEC and the UFC. He's in Anderson Silva territory. Remember, Anderson lost the title, and then he came back and he got that win, and he looked like he might make that second run, and then he started getting blasted by the next level. That's what's happening here to Jose. He had that second run. He had that second win. He took out Moicano and he took out Stevens, and now I think he's in trouble, especially at the title level. So I'm going to be in Jan's camp, but this is a very good fight. And I'm not one of those people that thinks Aldo shouldn't be here. I don't mind him having this opportunity. And honestly, it's an opportunity for Jan's name to be built. Because if he gets a win over Jose Aldo, then the fans will believe. You know, diehards like us, we know all about Petr Yan. But the casuals do not. And they're going to go, who's this dude? So when he takes out Jose Aldo, that will mean something to the general public. We have got the co-main event. Alexandr Volkanovski taking on Max Blessed Express Holloway. Judd, I'm going to start with you on this one, man. Tell me what you're feeling.
I don't understand how this is not the main event of a massive card. I mean, the first fight was insane. First fight was great. I don't know what to think about the second fight because of Max, to be honest. Alexandr, I thought he won the first fight. I thought it was a clear win in the first fight. And then after the fight, to hear Max go, oh, you guys like cared about the leg kicks? Oh, if I'd have known that, I would have done something different. I'm like, what are you talking about? So who knows? I mean, I tend to believe him. I honestly thought that was coming from the heart. He was going, yeah, I was fine with the leg kicks. I didn't think about them bothering me when it came to the scorecards. But so if Max checks a kick, what happens next? I don't know. These guys are both world destroyers. These are generational talents that just happen to be at the same weight class at the same time. Max is younger. He's got more experience, but who knows what happens in this fight. Alexandr comes from a great camp, so I'm sure he's going to be ready for this. I don't think he's got any question that he's got to beat Max again before he's, the champ, for serious. Everybody wants to see what Max is going to do, and if the blessed train is stopped or not. Love Max. And the idea that Max is going to give you plus 165 is wild, unless you have seen Alexandr. You know what I mean? But I honestly don't know what I'm going to do. I'm basically allergic to favorites, especially when I'm not sure one way or the other. So I'm leaning towards throwing something at Max in this fight. But I'm so jacked to watch this fight because either we're going to see Alexandr become one of the staples of the UFC, one of the monsters who's going to clean out a division if he beats Max a second time, or we're going to see Max come back and reinstitute himself at the top of this division and maybe see a trilogy fight afterwards. I mean, so excited for this fight. I mean, on the news today, we're out here in Arizona and they're talking about shutting stuff down and going back into a lockdown scenario. And I'm going, bless you, Dana White. You are saving us in 2020.
Absolutely. Giving us something to look forward to and something to do on a weekend. We can argue the entire week about the fights to entertain ourselves, and then we got something to watch on Saturday. Thank you, UFC.
And thank you for last weekend's picks. I mean, I got the diehard stimulus check basically, and I'm just loving life,
I'm gonna, you know what? That's another T-shirt. The diehard stimulus check. I like that.
They're paying off more student loans than Elizabeth Warren even dreams about doing. Yeah. What changes in this fight? Who adopts a different strategy?
Exactly. Yeah. So you know what, man? I was on Max the first time, and I agree with you. The first fight was close, it was competitive, but it was clear. I absolutely believe that Volkanovski won that first fight, and I think he rightfully did so. He took the title. He beat one of the best, probably the best this division has ever seen, and it's a really weird situation where the taller fighter seemed to struggle with the range of the shorter fighter. Both these guys are so skilled, so elite. This is next level MMA, and I'm so happy we're going to get the opportunity to watch a rematch for this one, and I'm going to bet that we get a trilogy out of it, my guy. I'm not pulling the trigger yet, but I'm going to be on Max Holloway. The fact that this fight was a pick'em the last time around, the fact that when you look at the fight, and again, like Max said, if you cared about the leg kicks, I'd have done something. We look at the significant strikes. Volkanovski landed 157 to Max's 134. I mean, that's incredibly close for a 25-minute slugfest. I think that Max is young enough to make the appropriate adjustments. He's only 28 years old. We talk about these guys that have been in the game forever. He's fought Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier. Look what Dustin Poirier did just a couple days ago. He took out that next wave of contender. He took out that new blood because he's constantly improving and making changes. I think Blessed is that kind of a guy. I think he'll be able to game plan differently now that he's been in there with Volkanovski. He's seen what he can do. He'll make the right adjustments and use that height and reach advantage. Volkanovski, he's incredible. He's in a good camp himself. I can't say that he won't make adjustments. Obviously, he's going to come in with a different game plan as well. But I think this fight is insanely close. So I think the people looking at this fight and going, Volkanovski is the king from now until forever off of that one fight, I just think it's too much. I'm not saying you're wrong. He may have a long reign. Volkanovski may be the new king and go undefeated for 6 fights in a row. But I'm not that sold on him over Max Holloway just yet. I think Max can do a lot of things differently and make this fight very competitive. So even if he loses, I think getting damn near 2-1 on Max Holloway is about as good of a bet as you'll ever get. He's sitting at plus 180 right now, and I know the world's on Volkanovski. I'm biding my time, folks. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to wait, because if I can get 2-1 or plus 190, something like that on Max Holloway, your boy's all in.
Yep. Well, both these guys are all caps badasses. I mean, they just are. Now, one thing I was kind of surprised by when I looked back at Max's record, he had 4 fights in a 12-month window leading into this fight. One of those fights was going up and taking an absolute beating from Dustin Poirier. I wonder, what Max looks like when he's had some time off, when he's back in the gym, letting everything clean up, spending that time getting himself right. I wonder if we get a different Max. I wonder if that wore on him a bit, because we didn't see him outpacing Alexandr. And Max normally has a gas tank 4 days, but Alexandr looked like he was siphoning that gas in the last fight a little bit. It wasn't like Max wasn't there. It was just that Alexandr had more. His gas pedal, he had both feet on that sucker. He was just going. And when Max tried to turn it up, he had an extra notch. I don't know if that's going to be the case now that Max has had a chance to rest up. He's not coming off of that brutal fight with Poirier. He hasn't had 4 fights in a 12-month window. I wonder if we're going to see the return of Max here. And at 2-1, why wouldn't you have a little bit of action after?
Exactly. I haven't seen anything to warrant Volkanovski as big of a favorite as he is. And that's all it comes down to. If you want to say he should be the favorite, respect the champ, you go for it. He won the last fight, rightfully so. But I don't see Max being a 2-1 dog to anybody in that division. So I'm going to end up taking that shot. You just wait. Main event time, folks. We made it. Thank you all so much for sticking with me. Believe it or not, even with a guest on the show, somehow we've kept this to a reasonable length. So thank you for hanging out with us. 381 viewers live right now. Thank you all, folks. I appreciate it. Hope you're all having some fun with the diehard stimulus checks from last week. We've got Kamaru Usman taking on Gilbert Durinho Burns. And I'm going to make this one as plain and simple as I can, folks. Your boy's on the Burns train. Your boy is on the Burns train, and it's not going anywhere. So I have been on Gilbert Burns ever since he moved up to 170 pounds. And the dude has been a runaway freight train ever since he got here. He was way too big for 155. And I know everyone brings up the loss to Hooker, but he was cutting so much weight to get down to 155. He's bigger than Tyrone Woodley when he stepped in there against the former champion. You're telling me that guy managed to get down to 155? He fought a very dangerous opponent, had not enough weight on his, not enough water in his brain, and he got clipped. That happens. He learned his lesson. He learned it early. Most people take 2 or 3 losses before they finally reluctantly change their weight class. No, he learned his lesson. He jumped up, and he's been a wrecking ball ever since. He's world class, next level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. His wrestling has been combined with his Jiu-Jitsu to have a phenomenal ground game. And don't forget, he's been a training partner of Usman for years. So this kid has been grappling with Usman this entire time and absorbing those little nuggets of wrestling ability. And there's something in those gym sessions that tells him he's capable of dethroning the champion. His striking game has come along big time. His left hand is deadly. This guy can out-grapple you. He can outstrike you. He can knock you out. He can choke you out. Every single way you can finish a mixed martial arts fight is on the table for my boy Gilbert Burns.
Yeah, this is where my heart kicks in and my brain shuts off. I cannot explain it. Usman is an absolute freak athlete and has looked nothing but dominant, when he fights. He goes in there, out-wrestles Tyron Woodley, out-boxes Colby Covington, looks sharp and awesome in both of those fights. I can't stand Usman. I can't put my finger on why. I love Burns. I think Usman's cringy as heck. Every time I see him, he looks like he's trying to play a WWE character. I don't, when he comes off humble, it appears fake. When he starts bragging, talking about how he's going to beat up everybody, it comes off fake. I'm like, there's got to be somewhere in the middle that's real with this dude. But
it's like he tried to copy Colby Covington and couldn't figure out where his character was going to be. Yep.
And it's not that he's a boring fighter, but he's not getting traction. I think it's because of who he is. He's a hell of a fighter. Don't get me wrong, but how wild is it that people? I mean, his record. He's a beast. He's 16-1, 11-0 in the UFC. But when you look at the names on his record, it's not as deep as you would think for a guy who's been dominant and. But I think that has more to do with the fact that nobody wanted to fight this dude before he had the strap. I mean, why would you? He is a nightmare. Gilbert's had 7, this is going to be fight 7 in a 2-year window. He's been on an absolute rocket ship, and we've been cashing with him along the way. I'm on the Gilbert train as well. We're going to get, plus 2-1, something like that, probably by the time this, where was it at? I'm looking up. I was seeing plus 170.
It's sitting at plus 195 out there right now.
I was like, I'm not going to cash it. I'm not going to do it at plus 170. I actually think it moves up from there. I think the ceiling will be higher than that. I think we're going to get 2-1 money on Gilbert Burns. And I would rather bet 1 to win 2 on Gilbert than bet 2 to win 1 on Kamaru. But this is a great fight. I'm not saying I absolutely know what happens in this fight because Kamaru has every single skill that you would look for to be able to hang in there with Gilbert. He can box. We saw him boxing. He hits hard enough to break Colby's jaw halfway through that fight. And obviously the guy can wrestle. And he can wrestle enough to where if he doesn't want to be on the ground with Gilbert, he may not be on the ground with Gilbert. This may be a pure boxing contest, but Gilbert looked good. Boxing.
I don't mind that.
Yeah, Gilbert looks good. This is going to be a great main event, but I swear to goodness, as I look at this card, I'm like, do we have 4 main event fights on this main card?
Yeah.
It's wild. Absolutely
wild. And, I don't want to sell Usman short. For everybody listening right now, before the keyboard warriors start going at it, I know how good Usman is. Don't get me wrong. Like you said, the dude is dang near undefeated. He's only got 1 loss on his professional record, and I think it was a split. Oh, no, he got submitted in his second fight all the way back in 2013. So Usman is a legitimate nightmare. His wrestling is next level, but he's fallen in love with his hands. And you know what? The fight with Colby was phenomenal. That was a great fight, and I had it, I think, 2-2 going into the 5th round there. If it hadn't been for the crack on the jaw of Colby was very live to win that fight, in my opinion. And if he comes out with that kind of an approach with Gilbert Burns, we're going to have another close type of fight. And I know he's got the reach advantage. I do feel like that causes a problem, but I think Burns is faster than him. I think he's got a hand speed advantage. Burns is going to be wailing him with shots. And Colby, for the volume that he has, doesn't really sit on his punches. He had Usman hurt a couple times in that fight, but he didn't have the power to drop him. I think that story will be different with my boy Gilbert Burns. And the other thing you've got to recall is Usman is a lifelong wrestler. This dude's got no knees. He went on Joe Rogan's podcast and talked about how there's literally no cartilage in his knees anymore. He has to find other ways other than running to get his cardio in because he simply can't any longer. He does nothing but wrestle. He's got one of these old bodies. He's a guy that I feel like might very well be being propped up by EPO right now, but he's got a shot of turning old overnight because of the wear and tear he's put through, all the stress he's put his body through all these years. He easily could just not be himself one day in the cage. And the fact that he's only been fighting once or twice a year, and he's now taken the most damage out of his entire career, even though he did win that fight with Colby Covington, Colby landed a lot of significant strikes. I want to say 143 or something like that. He hit him with far more damage than he has ever taken. So it'll be interesting to see how Kamaru Usman bounces back from that. And I know he's moved out. He's training with Whitman. He's training with Gaethje. And that is definitely a point in his favor. But I think that's also going to push the line. I'm going to sit back and let everyone lay the wood on Usman. And I'm going to hope we get 220 on Burns. I'm going to hope we get 225 on Burns. So I'm going to take both dogs. I'm going to take Max Holloway. I'm going to take Gilbert Burns. We're going to risk 2 units on those, but everybody be patient. Everybody watching this show, if you're looking for another diehard stimulus check, if you're going to tail my picks and go with me, don't hit it now. It's going to get wider. The money is going to come in on those favorites. So hold tight. Remember, we've got 2 weeks. These fights aren't Saturday. Don't lock your money up now. Wait for the best line if you're going to take the dogs in these spots.
Absolutely.
And
we got to get everybody on Twitter. Everybody subscribe to odds.com. Everybody subscribe to Die Hard MMA Podcast because it's going to be a ton more information coming out on these. The social media stalking that Clint does isn't going to slow down anytime soon. The weigh-ins are going to happen. We're going to get a bunch of information on the first Fight Island card. This thing's going to be a hype train. And with this card, there's good reason for it to be. This is going to be an absolutely sick night of fights to back up a great night of fights. Like the only thing that's a bummer for Dustin and Hooker is that they're going to be getting all this shine for about 2 weeks. Because with this lineup, there may be 2 or 3 fight of the nights on this card that will absolutely compete with the fight of the year candidate that we saw on Saturday.
Absolutely.
What do you think happens next for those two? I was sitting there looking at the rankings and going, dude, what do we get a Ferguson Hooker, 2 guys coming off of losses that are a blast to watch fight?
I feel like that makes sense.
Right?
I feel like that absolutely makes sense. However, I also wouldn't mind swapping out some of the blood at 155. I think Poirier Hooker to see who gets back in the title mix definitely makes sense. But I also would love to see Poirier Ferguson. But I would love to see Tony Ferguson take on Charles Oliveira. Both of them having similar body types, both of them having, wizard level ground games. That's a fight that I want to see. And for Dan Hooker, I mean, he's almost there, man, but unfortunately he's been in so many wars these last couple fights. I feel like he's going to have a steep cliff type of drop-off in the near future. He's been durable as heck, and I hope he makes the adjustments to continue on that rise, but he needs to take some time off. The last couple fights have been absolutely awful for his longevity, and he needs to take a full year off in recovery to just chill out. And then we'll see what happens next for him. But I would love to see Tony Ferguson, Dustin Poirier, maybe in December, something like that. Or if we can get Charles Oliveira in there to fight him, that would be a banger as well.
See, I almost wonder if Dustin doesn't hold out for the winner of Gaethje and Khabib, especially if it's Gaethje. I mean, selling the rematch, Gaethje Poirier would be a heck of a fight.
I want to see a Poirier Conor. I want to see a Poirier Conor rematch. I mean, it's time. They've cemented themselves as the next pecking order. I do think Poirier needs one more win to get him back into title contention after the loss to Khabib. Remind everybody that he deserves it, that type of thing. And I think they're going to try to get Conor in without taking another fight for the title. But if there was ever a time for that rematch, it's now.
Dude, I got to tell you, I know Conor's Conor. Conor's a great fighter. Conor's got heart for days. I'm really starting to wonder as I watch these fights in this division if there's not a reason why Conor's on the couch. I mean, that division's deep and dangerous with matchups that aren't great for him. We saw him against Khabib. Gaethje matches up great with him. I thought Ferguson matched up great with him forever for the last few years. I thought Ferguson could be Conor's boogeyman. I don't know. I'm looking for a fight in the top 5 that I think Conor would be a 2-1 favorite against. Having a really hard time finding one. This is a tough division for him.
I love 155 right now. It reminds me of 205 when I first got into martial arts, when literally any guy on the right night could take the belt. I mean, obviously Khabib is the king ruling with an iron fist, but the top 10, any one of those guys could be the number one contender on their best night. So I'm loving 155. And, guys, we got to close down the show. Thank you all so much for hanging out. Big shout out to Cousin Judd for joining us on the show today. I appreciate you all tuning in. Don't forget the schedule. We will be live every single week on Monday for the Die Hard MMA podcast. Whether there's a fight or not, we will have content for you. We're breaking down the Fight Island matchups coming up tomorrow on Odds HQ. I will be live with my boys, Jimmy the Bag, Mo Scream, and Boston Nick, to go ahead and roundtable these fights once again. Thursday, I should have my Total Madness mini show coming out to you, and I'm not going to have the weigh-in show this week, but I will be doing articles for every single fight on the main card, breaking them down further in depth than I normally do, since we don't have fights to weigh in on for the weigh-in show. Bad joke. I'm sorry. I'm a dad. I've got dad jokes. So everyone, thank you very much for hanging out. Subscribe, hit the like button, share the show, do us a favor, and everybody stay safe out there. Go bet on some soccer or something. Good luck on your action for the next week while we've got nothing going on. Judd, if you want to plug something, if you want to say what's up or give your handle out, whatever, you got the floor, man.
I got nothing to plug. I'm so jacked for the Die Hard MMA podcast. I mean, I remember when we were talking about this on the phone before you did the first one, and odds.com has come in and partnered with you, and you guys are killing it. I love the content that you guys are putting out. Love watching the live streams that you've been doing with Pub Sports Radio. Those guys are a blast to watch. The articles that are coming out are sweet. I think what we're seeing is what I thought would happen. Everybody's getting the same thing that I knew that they would get with you, which is, great lines, great insight, great content, and odds.com and Goat Capital Sports and Pub Sports Radio. Everybody's saying the same thing that the rest of us are saying, is that you're a diamond in the rough, man. You're starting to get found, and we're hitting bets and cashing checks and sprinkling and hitting 10-1 subs and doing all kinds of fun stuff. And you're exploding for a reason, because the Die Hard Army is here for you and behind you. And we've got our faves and we've got our fades, and we're just loving life right now. What a time.
Thank you, Judd. I appreciate that, man. I appreciate all you listeners here in the chat. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Have a great week. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.